The great empires of the ancient world built their legacies in stone. Looking at the ziggurats of Akkad or the massive temples of Egypt, they projected an aura of absolute permanence. They wanted their citizens to believe that their borders would hold forever. But out of the vast steppes and open oceans emerged highly mobile, nomadic confederations. They did not care about static borders. Striking with terrifying speed, these invaders dismantled the ancient world's most entrenched superpowers in a matter of years. The Gutians swept down from the Zagros Mountains to collapse the Akkadian Empire. A mysterious maritime coalition known as the Sea Peoples ravaged the entire eastern Mediterranean. Centuries later, the Avars rode into Europe and redrew the map of the continent. These groups toppled established dynasties and forced entire populations across continents. Yet they share a glaring historical blind spot. They built no great archives. They left no written texts. They vanished without their own accounts. To understand these ghost empires, we have to piece together their existence from the outside. We have to read the panicked propaganda written by their terrified victims and dig for the rare scraps of culture they left behind in the dirt. When a settled civilization is overrun, its surviving scribes rarely offer an objective historical account. Take the Akkadians. When the Gutians conquered them, Sumerian writers composed the Curse of Akkad. They described the invaders as a fanged serpent of the mountains, an unbridled people with canine instincts and the features of monkeys. The Egyptian New Kingdom took a different approach, aggressive bragging. Pharaoh Ramesses III covered the walls of his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu with an account of his archer ambush against the Sea Peoples at the Battle of the Delta. In this relief, Ramesses looms over the scene as a giant, effortlessly crushing the chaotic enemy fleet. But look at the wider geopolitical map immediately following this battle. The Hittites fell. Ugarit burned. The great Near Eastern powers crumbled into the late Bronze Age collapse. If Ramesses secured the total victory depicted on his temple walls, the surrounding civilized world would not have burned to the ground. The official records carved into stone by surviving empires are often public relations campaigns. They are designed to project strength to an internal populace and mask the reality of a state that is rapidly falling apart. Other nomadic powers are known to us through the horrified accounts of foreign travelers. In the 5th century, the Hephthalites, or White Huns, expanded out of Central Asia. They broke the Gupta Empire in India. In Persia, they killed the Sassanid king Peroz, reportedly turning his skull into a silver-lined drinking cup. The Hephthalites maintained seasonal capitals, controlled international trade networks, and practiced a complex polyandrous social structure. But they didn't write any of this down themselves. Every detail of their statecraft comes from the journals of traveling Chinese monks and distant Byzantine historians. Because we rely on outsiders, the picture is filled with contradictions. Indian and Chinese sources claim the Hephthalites ruthlessly persecuted Buddhists and burned every monastery in their path, leaving statues like this ancient Gandharan Buddha headless in the ruins. Yet archaeological digs in Hephthalite territory show that Buddhist centers continued to operate under their rule. When the only people telling your story are terrified victims and distant diplomats, the nuance of your culture is erased. Masterful strategists and complex societies are flattened into two-dimensional caricatures of savage hordes. By the 6th century, the Avar Empire dominated Central Europe, forcing the Longobards into Italy and holding power until the reign of Charlemagne. But what happens when historians actually unearth something a ghost empire wrote for itself? In 1983, archaeologists excavating a late Avar cemetery discovered this 8th century bone needle case. Scratched into its sides are 59 linear runiform characters. This is one of the longest continuous texts ever recovered from the Avars. But discovering the text is only half the battle. Today, linguists fiercely debate what it says. Mainstream epigraphers argue the angular strokes represent an Old Turkic dialect. Meanwhile, nationalist scholars propose it is an early form of Hungarian script, translating the text as a magical spell designed to ward off a needle-fearing demon named Ungar. Because the script lacks vowels and clear word spacing, and because we have so few examples of Avar writing to compare it against, both translations remain hypothetical. Without a bilingual key like the Rosetta Stone, the true voice of the Avars remains permanently locked in the bone. This instability stems from how these empires were managed, held together by personal military allegiance rather than a civil bureaucracy. They lacked institutional momentum. Without a legal code or tax-gathering class to stabilize the state, losing a single leader means the entire network simply dissolves. The Hephthalite superpower was entirely dismantled in a single decade, after being caught between a dual alliance of Sassanid Persians and Western Turks. The vast Avar Khaganate effectively vanished from the map shortly after Charlemagne captured their central fortress, known as the Ring. Their physical empires disappeared, but they acted as the catalysts for the civilizations that followed. The Gutians cleared the way for the third dynasty of Ur. The Sea People's devastation forced the Mediterranean into the Iron Age. The Avars pushed the Lombards into Italy, creating the demographic map of the modern continent. These groups possessed the military genius to dismantle the world's most stable states. But because they left the record of their existence to the people they conquered, their own history became whatever their enemies wanted it to be.